I thought we were just talking. Until one night on the balcony changed everything. One look, one touch, and suddenly nothing felt the same. What happens when desire and restraint collide? Disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The balcony was quiet except for the distant hum of the city lights below, but the air between them was electric, as if every glance carried a secret too heavy to speak aloud. She felt it first, a shiver that had nothing to do with the night breeze, when he leaned closer than necessary, his hand brushing hers as if by accident. She couldn't tell if her pulse was hers or if it belonged to him now, syncing with the rhythm of something unspoken, something dangerous yet irresistible. Their conversation was light, almost trivial, but the tension under every word pulled tighter with each passing second. She caught him staring once, not at her words, but at the curve of her shoulder, the slight tremor when his fingertips grazed her. And for a moment, she wondered if he even realized the gravity of the silence they were sharing. A silence that spoke more than any laughter or small talk ever could. He shifted slightly, close enough that the warmth radiating from him pressed against her. The space between them was gone. The cityscape flickered below, and she felt herself floating, suspended in the charged air of something forbidden. Her mind raced, heart hammering, as his gaze held hers longer than it should, a mixture of daring and restraint. It was a tease, a silent question neither dared to answer out loud. She didn't move away, though every rule she'd set for herself screamed to. Something in the way he lingered, the almost imperceptible closeness, made the night itself feel alive. The seconds stretched, heavy with unsaid words and unclaimed feelings. And just when the world seemed to collapse into the quiet storm around them, he leaned in slightly, a whisper of a gesture, leaving her suspended between curiosity and fear, desire and hesitation. And then nothing. The night held its breath, leaving the moment dangling like a spark over dry kindling. She didn't know if this would ignite or vanish, but she knew, deep down, that nothing between them could ever be the same. The city lights flickered like distant stars, but all she could see was him. Every small movement, the way his fingers brushed against the railing, the slight tilt of his head, felt magnified, charged with unspoken meaning. She realized she had been holding her breath, waiting for something neither of them could name, and the thought made her heart ache in a delicious, painful way. "You always get lost in the view," he said softly, almost a whisper, yet his gaze never left hers. His voice carried warmth and something else, a question he didn't have the courage to ask. She smiled, a faint, fleeting curve of her lips, trying to play it off, but the tension in her chest betrayed her. She wanted him closer, yet the rules she'd built for herself tightened around her like invisible chains. Their knees brushed accidentally, or perhaps deliberately, and she felt a spark shoot up her spine. She glanced at him, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed down to that one touch, that one fleeting connection. He met her eyes, and in them she saw a reflection of everything she felt but couldn't say. The air between them was heavy, almost trembling, as if the night itself were holding its breath. I didn't mean to get so quiet," she murmured, though her words were little more than an excuse. He smiled faintly, a knowing curve of lips, as if he understood exactly what she meant. Silence stretched between them again, but it was not uncomfortable. It was alive, throbbing with the weight of everything unsaid. She wanted to lean into him, wanted to feel that closeness, but fear tangled with desire. He seemed to sense it, too, hesitating, caught between action and restraint. Yet his hand hovered near hers, and for a fleeting second, the world contracted to the space between them. Their breaths mingled with the night air, soft and uneven, carrying the tension of unspoken longing. And still nothing happened. The moment lingered, fragile, exquisite, like a note held just at the edge of a song. She wanted to speak, to move, to cross the line, but the story between them was just beginning. A slow burn that would demand patience, courage, and surrender. The night deepened, and with it, the unspoken tension between them thickened like fog. Each glance carried weight, Each pause in conversation was a tiny earthquake beneath the surface. She wanted to close the space between them, to lean into the warmth radiating from his presence. Yet something invisible held her back. A memory, a fear, a boundary she wasn't ready to cross. He shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly, so that their shoulders brushed. The contact was electric, but he didn't push further. Instead, his gaze softened, tracing the line of her jaw, the way the moonlight caught the curve of her hair. She felt her chest tighten, a mix of longing and restraint pressing against her ribs. Her fingers twitched, reaching for the hand that lingered near hers but stopped short. The pull toward him was undeniable, yet fear of losing herself in it held her back. "I should probably," she started, voice trailing into the night, unsure if she wanted an excuse to leave or an excuse to stay. He tilted his head, studying her, his expression unreadable. She wondered if he could feel the same storm swirling inside her, the mix of desire and hesitation that made her knees weak. Her hair fell forward, brushing his arm lightly, and she flinched, surprised by the heat that ran up her spine. He caught the movement, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips, but his hand didn't move closer. It was almost cruel, the way he hovered on the edge of closeness without crossing the line. She felt pulled, pushed, and spun around by emotions she hadn't anticipated. I just don't want to rush things," he said finally, voice low but steady. It was a shield and a confession all at once. She nodded, pretending to understand, though every fiber of her body protested the restraint. The air between them was charged with everything left unsaid. Secrets, fears, unspoken truths that clung to them like a second skin. They stood there, mere inches apart, breathing in the same night air, hands almost touching. And in that precarious moment, the desire hummed loudly, intoxicating and unyielding. Yet neither moved closer. The story was no longer about proximity but about restraint, about the aching tension of wanting someone too much, and fearing that doing so might shatter everything delicate in its wake. The night air seemed to thrum around them, every breath drawn thick with anticipation. Their bodies were only inches apart, yet it felt as though 1,000 miles of emotion lay between them. She could feel it, the weight of every unspoken word, every stolen glance, pressing against her chest like a tide that refused to recede. He shifted closer, just slightly, the brush of his hand against hers sending a jolt through her that was electric and disorienting. She caught her breath, heart pounding, and for a moment the world narrowed to the space they shared. She wanted to speak, to break the silence with something real, something that could cut through the tension and give shape to what was hovering between them. I don't want to hide how I feel," he whispered, voice low, almost trembling. It was soft, intimate, a confession not meant for anyone else. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. She didn't need to speak. She could feel it in the way he looked at her, in the pull of his presence, in the warmth that radiated from him. Her fingers twitched again, reaching instinctively for his, but she stopped, hovering on the edge of contact, suspended between fear and want. The air between them was heavy, vibrating with possibility, with desire held at bay, with something sacred that neither dared to claim fully. Every heartbeat felt like a drum, every inhale a gasp of unspoken longing. He leaned just a fraction closer, enough that her hair brushed his shoulder, and she shivered, caught in the current of an emotion too deep to name. Their gazes locked, unblinking, and she felt as though time had slowed, the night holding its breath along with them. In that instant it was not about words or action, but about the truth of what was there, raw, unfiltered, undeniable. And then he whispered again, closer this time, a soft confession that lingered in the space between them, and silence fell like a weight, pressing them together without a single touch. She felt it, the intimacy, the hunger, the aching pull, even as their hands remained separate. The night seemed to hold them, fragile and electric, perched on the edge of everything they wanted but had not yet claimed. The balcony had become their private universe, cocooned in the soft glow of city lights, rain pattering gently against the railing. The night smelled of wet stone and jasmine, the air thick with possibility. Every sound was amplified, from the distant hum of the streets to the soft catch of her breath when he moved closer. Their eyes met, and in that gaze was a confession neither had the courage to voice aloud until now. She felt his warmth before she felt his words, the steady pull of his presence wrapping around her like a slow, unspoken promise. Her hand brushed against his, lightly, almost by accident, but the electricity of that fleeting contact drew them closer, tightening the space between them. Time seemed suspended. A single heartbeat stretched into eternity, a moment dense with everything they had denied themselves. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured, his voice low and intimate, and she felt it in her chest, a pulse that echoed in every corner of her being. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Her breath melted into his as they leaned closer, shoulders brushing, foreheads nearly touching. The air between them vibrated with every unspoken word, every restrained confession, every longing glance that had brought them to this moment. Rain began to fall in a soft, melodic rhythm, drumming gently on the balcony floor, and it was as though the world had narrowed to them alone. Her hair clung lightly to her neck, damp from the mist, and he reached a hand to brush it back, their fingers grazing, lingering. Their bodies spoke the words they couldn't say, communicating in the quiet intimacy of closeness, in the shared warmth that neither of them had dared to claim before. They moved as if in slow motion, drawn together by gravity and desire, but without haste, without need to define what this was. Each subtle shift, each gentle exhale, conveyed everything: longing, trust, surrender. The city lights shimmered through the rain, casting glimmers across her skin, and she felt as if she could dissolve into the moment entirely. Her hand rested lightly on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm, and in response, he held her closer, not forcing anything, but letting the emotion flow naturally. The heat between them was not physical in the usual sense. It was something far deeper. Two hearts echoing the same unspoken language, two souls allowing themselves to finally feel without fear. And then, silence settled, heavy and tender, as they simply existed together, bodies nearly fused, breaths mingling, eyes locked, hearts in rhythm. The storm outside whispered around them, but they were untouched by everything except this exquisite, delicate, breathtaking intimacy that belonged only to them. The morning arrived slowly, washing the balcony in a soft gold light. Rain had stopped, leaving droplets glimmering on the railing like tiny crystals. She sat wrapped in a loose robe, knees drawn to her chest, and stared at the city as if seeing it for the first time. The events of last night lingered like a faint perfume, intoxicating, disorienting, impossible to ignore. He stood a few feet away, leaning against the balcony frame, silent, watching her quietly. Neither spoke immediately. Words felt both necessary and dangerous. The night had been everything unsaid made real. Yet now, in the harsh clarity of daylight, their actions felt heavy, loaded with questions neither was ready to answer. Her hand brushed against hers instinctively, a ghost of last night's intimacy. She flinched slightly, unsure whether to recoil or reach for it. He noticed, a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugging at his lips, tempered by the tension of restraint. It was messy and it was real. They had crossed a line together, yet no one had promised what came after. I didn't expect this," she whispered finally, voice low and unsteady. Not the night, not the closeness, but the aftermath, the weight of what it all meant. He nodded, understanding perfectly, though his own heart thrummed with confusion and desire. Silence settled around them again, but it was no longer electric. It was reflective, contemplative, layered with every emotion that had brewed between them. And then, from behind the door, a soft knock echoed. A familiar voice called out, unexpectedly light and casual, a reminder that the world outside their balcony still existed. Both froze, awareness snapping back into the present. Their shared space, their fragile bubble, had been pierced, and yet, for the first time, it felt like a test. A gentle nudge from reality asking who they were and what they wanted to become. He glanced at her, eyes searching hers for a response, and she felt the bond between them deepen, unspoken but undeniable. Whatever had happened last night was theirs. Messy, beautiful, and now strengthened by the confrontation with life beyond the balcony. The moment was fleeting, but it left an imprint on their hearts. They didn't rush. They didn't speak further. They simply existed together in the golden morning light, two people forever altered by one night, tethered now by more than desire, by trust, tension, and the fragile beginnings of something profound. The evening sky blushed with amber and rose as the city lights began to twinkle once more. They stood side by side on the balcony, shoulders brushing lightly, a quiet understanding passing between them. The night, with all its storms and confessions, had left them raw, open, and yet tethered in a way neither had expected. She rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in the faint scent of his jacket, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat against her own. His hand found hers again, fingers intertwining naturally, as if they had been made to fit together this way. Words were unnecessary now. The silence was full, rich with every emotion they had traversed. Longing, hesitation, fear, and ultimately, surrender. "Whatever comes next," he whispered softly, lips brushing the crown of her head. "We face it together." She lifted her gaze, eyes reflecting the last hues of sunset, and smiled, a small, tremulous curve that carried the weight of relief and hope. The night had been a reckoning, a test of patience and trust, and now the world seemed gentler, brighter, somehow more intimate. They lingered there, letting the quiet wrap around them like a shared secret. Her forehead rested against his, breaths mingling in the space between them. A slow, steady connection that needed no words. Every lingering glance, every subtle touch, spoke volumes about the bond they had nurtured in stolen moments, in soft confessions, in the delicate dance of restraint and desire. And then, with a soft sigh, they pulled back just enough to see each other fully, smiles honest, hearts unguarded. The tension that had once crackled so fiercely was now replaced by warmth, peace, and a knowledge that they had crossed a threshold together. Whether this was the start of something enduring or the memory of something fleeting, it was theirs, beautiful, unshakable, unforgettable. As the city shimmered below them and night settled into a quiet hum, they stayed there a little longer, savoring the aftertaste of an intimate, transformative evening. No words were needed, just two hearts choosing closeness, choosing trust, choosing the subtle, profound joy of finally being seen.